All right. Guys, welcome back to the Baer Taffy Live Show. I'm going to start a Skype call real quick here, actually, because we have a very special treat. Martin, a.k.a. Grapefrukt, the developer of Rymdkapsel, is what we're playing today for the Indie Spotlights. I'm going to try to get him on the Skype call here. Hopefully things will not completely keel over. Hello there. Hello, hello, hello.
Hello.
Hello! How you doing?
Pretty good.
Good to see. All right, so we are live here in the Twitch, and I do have to forewarn you. I'm not sure if you were seeing us earlier, but the Twitch chat is performing poorly tonight. Well, not the members of the Twitch chat, but the actual Twitch chat itself is not doing.
Yeah, it was working for me, and then I decided to pop it out into its own window, and now it's not working.
Ah, jeez, yeah. But hopefully we'll be able to get these guys involved. But nonetheless. This is Martin. He is the developer of, and you're going to have to correct me because I know I'm probably butchering this, but it's Rymdkapsel?
Yeah, pretty much.
Good? Okay, cool. And he is Swedish, yes, Booty Pounder. That's apparently our first question from Booty Pounder 666. So that's that's the first question we need to field here. We got our Swedish developer, and I'm just going to give you a minute here if you want to just talk about who you are, what kind of games you've done as I go ahead and boot up a new game, and we will play this because it's actually facilitates this kind of slow-paced thing when I need to get this music up, because that's like one of the most important things. The music is fantastic. So let's get this going. And yeah, if you want to just let these guys know who you are, what you've done in the past, and a quick bit about Rymdkapsel, and then we'll get into the actual game itself here.
Right. So yeah, I'm Martin. I've been making games for I guess it's probably like 10 years now.
Mm-hmm.
I'm old, but
admitting it is the first step, right?
Yeah, right. Professionally for maybe like 3 years, like full time.
Mm-hmm.
And this game for the past 2 years, I had no idea it was going to take that long when I started.
Right.
If I knew, I probably wouldn't have started it.
Well, that's something
it just
no one
happened.
probably expects, right? Is to think, oh yeah, I'll spend about 2 years working on this, and then it'll be fine from there on.
Right. Yeah, and I thought I was done a year ago, and then. Well, yeah, it just takes a lot of time. It takes a surprising amount of time, especially when you're just one person.
Right.
Everything takes a lot of time. Right, yeah. So I've done a few other games in the past, all of them strange and odd. We were talking earlier about Jesus versus Dinosaurs.
Yes.
Which I made. I made with my good friend Petri.
Right.
Who I suppose is most famous for crayon physics, which was a big thing.
Mm-hmm. I love
a few years
physics,
back.
by the way. Yeah, I didn't even know he was involved with that, so that's good information for me. I actually have to thank Zach7062. He caused the children to cheer as you were introducing yourself. It worked out pretty well, so everybody got to enjoy that. But thank you, Zach, for subscribing. So yeah, Jesus versus Dinosaurs is actually something I wanted to touch on, but let's go ahead and talk about what we've got going on here. So this is Rymdkapsel. It's a space station building game, and it's very slow, very methodic, very... It's a relaxing game, and I think that's by design, of course, right? You'd say that this is just the kind of game that you think people don't really want to get all intense and worried about, although in the later stages that can certainly happen. But game just kind of designed to allow you to mellow out and hang out in kind of a 4X-esque just space station building land, yeah?
Yeah, pretty much. It's basically hipster StarCraft. That's what people have been calling it.
I can't believe I didn't capitalize on the opportunity to say that myself. That's beautiful.
So yeah, I basically it turned when I did it, I wasn't really sure what I was making. I was just trying stuff.
Sure.
And I had never intended to make a strategy game. This is what sort of came out of it. And I had the base building down pretty early, and then I wanted to try and add in some resource management and the strategy game bits, just try and see what happened.
Right.
And it was really complicated at first, and then I started taking stuff out and just what's the bare minimum I can get away with for the amount of resources, or the different resource types and the different room types and all of that. So I just kept taking stuff away.
Sure.
And it worked out pretty well. The game works
So it didn't start as a. It kind of sounds like it didn't start off as a minimalist by design kind of thing. It just kind of became that as you were looking into it and you were seeing like, what can I take out to make this,
Right.
not necessarily simpler, but more concrete to the idea of exactly what we want to do here.
I mean, that's sort of the way I tend to make video games. So you start making something. With this, I wanted to make something. I had this idea in my mind about like a space station, like the spaceship in Alien or something.
Right.
And there's a hull breach, and the air pressure goes out the side of the ship, and the little workers you have inside your ship go flying out into space, and you can see them go like, whoa. That was the entire concept of the game when I started.
Awesome.
That little thing.
Yeah.
And that, like, the hull breach never made it into the game, and it's turned into this instead. So there's a lot of failure involved when I'm making video games. Most of them are pretty bad. Sometimes I strike gold and manage to make something proper.
Sure.
You really should you should prioritize your reactor before you mess yourself up.
Yeah, I'm kind of making a weird build setup right here. I should probably explain what's going on. They're also really happy that you made that bear pun earlier, by the way, the bare minimum.
I can imagine.
But yeah, so what we've got going on here, guys, so there's 6 different types of buildings, and then there's corridors you can build here. So you see the extractors, they kind of give you a really nice succinct definition of what they actually do. The extractors you can only build by the little material fields. You guys can see these here, just the little pink floating squares up in the space areas. The extractors create the materials. There's 3 different kinds of resources you need. You need the materials, you need the energy, I believe is what that is, from the reactors, and then you need food, which is generated by the gardens that have to take the gardens generated sludge over to kitchens in order to turn it into actual usable food. So I might have already screwed myself over here, unfortunately. I think I'm gonna have to reset because
I think you're fine.
I think I've completely run out of energy, actually. And
you'll be fine.
Think so?
I think so. It should be no. You have to sell your garden. If you sell the garden,
I do have to sell the garden. Yeah, okay. So we gotta get that value back, and then we're gonna have these guys finish off that reactor. So yeah, I did a poor job of demonstrating the early game here.
Start. Right? Yeah.
Exactly. So yeah, you want to. The early game is usually pretty simple unless you butcher it like I did. But the general idea is you want to get started on building the first room sets and preparing yourself for the oncoming onslaught. You'll see that this little red bar down below here is filling up, and as soon as that finishes filling, we're going to be attacked. So what I need to do here, first of all, is finish off... I did finish the reactor, thankfully, so now we can go ahead and build our garden and get the actual food supply being built up. So as we're doing this here, you'll see that the entire idea behind our start here is we had some saved emergency resources in these 3 little black blocks here, and now our goal is to make ourselves self-sufficient. So we do that by creating the buildings necessary to produce these 3 different resources and continue to be able to build on and get on to bigger and better things. Autumn Muse says, why don't you listen to this guy, Barry? It's not like he knows what he's doing. So this started off as a mobile game, though, right? So you started off developing it for the Android, and then it became insanely popular from there, is what I hear.
Right. Actually, I started making it. I had an iPad, and I wanted to make something for that.
Interesting.
So I figured, like, I'll make it for iPad, and we'll see what happens. So that's what I did back in, like, that was March, almost 2 years ago. And I worked on that for a little while, and then I posted a teaser trailer like July, May, maybe. And a guy at Sony who I'd been talking to earlier, he was like, hey, you should put that on the Vita. And I'm like, okay, maybe.
From Sony,
Tell me more.
Maybe you're thinking straight there.
So iPad development was put on hold, and I did it for the Vita first. So that's what that released in about a year after that. So like May, so a little bit more than a year ago. This is all very confusing. And then a few months after that, like in August, I did iOS and Android.
Nice.
And now
we have our...
another 3 or 4 months later, it's PC.
Yes, and it is Fantastic. So, guys, this is available over on Rymdkapsel.com, I believe it is. You can find the link for it. I've got the exclamation point spotlight command. You guys can type in the chat. You can find more information about it over there. It's on sale for, I want to say, $8, correct?
That is correct.
Yes, so $8.
And it's 10% off this week.
Mm-hmm. You can get it for, you can get it from the Humble link, actually, if you guys go over to Rymdkapsel.com. You can get the Humble link, which gives you, of course, the DRM free edition and the Steam download as well. Probably the best way to get it, in my opinion. You can also get the Monolith edition. Comes with the Android version, the soundtrack, and a few little secret gifts, which I'm curious
I
about.
love it when you do the sales pitch, so I don't have to. That's nice.
Yes, I'll save you that self-aggrandizement, right? We'll try to make it a little bit simpler here. If you're just joining us, too, we're talking with, I'm scared to say this one, too. It's Grapefrukt, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, he's a developer.
You're doing very well.
Thank you.
Excellent
Yeah, I know. I was worried about it because I think you saw Northern Lions' Let's Look At of the video, and some people were really tearing into him for his Swedish pronunciation. You know, being an American guy, I'm sure he's really qualified.
One really funny thing that happens whenever there's an article about Rymdkapsel, there's a Swedish guy or girl in the comments telling people what it means.
Of course, yeah.
Infallible.
Yeah.
Which is adorable. Like I think that's cute.
Yeah, but it's space pod, right? Something like that.
Yes.
Yes.
Exactly that.
Got it. I did my research. See,
I wanted something that sounded vaguely like Russian scary space programming.
Right.
And something that was like unique, so it could be just mine. Like I wouldn't have any issues getting the domain. I wouldn't have any issues like for Google
Sure.
and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
So I settled on this, and, and people are like, "Yeah, is that the final name? Cool."
Like, you sure about that, man? I'll be like, yeah, all right.
And by then, I was committed. Like I couldn't change it. I don't know. It's worked out okay despite the name, I think.
Sure. You know what's kind of funny about that is I'm actually looking at the Twitch database of games as I was trying to get this in so we can make sure people saw the right game for it. And there's actually another game on Twitch in their database that starts with RYMD. This is Rymdkapsel or something like that. So
Okay.
I'm glad you were concerned about the Google space for it, but apparently you have some competition, so I'd keep that in mind, I guess.
Yeah, right. Yeah, because Rymd is space in Swedish, so there's a couple of them.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
None very, very big or well known, but I think you're doing pretty well.
I'm trying to, yeah. So I'm trying to think of really. Obviously, I've got like 3 different things on my mind right now. We've got Wave 2 coming in, and now you guys are actually going to be able to see the first little bit of real enemies that are going to come in and try to wreck our little space station here. Luckily, it's not too terrible as we're going through these first couple of waves. But all you got to do when that bar fills up, essentially, is just move your dudes away from whatever you're doing. Hopefully, you've got some weapon stations built up by that time. They pick up these little laser bits here, and they fend off the attackers. First few waves, usually not that bad. The things can actually get kind of hectic as we move on. That's kind of what I wanted to touch on a bit in general here as well. The game is pretty slow-paced, pretty slow-moving in the beginning stages here. It's not really a lot going on. You're able to just kind of build slowly and make sure you got things set up properly as you're expanding, hopefully, into these other little areas that we'll talk about what's going on over there on the right side in short order here as I'm actually trying to build my corridors over there that way. But the slow pace is actually kind of something I wanted to pick your brain on as well, Martin. I wanted to see what kind of feedback you've gotten as far as like how slow the game moves at the beginning. Like I know Ryan too actually mentioned the fact that he kind of would have liked to have some kind of fast forward button in the beginning. I'm kind of against that actually. I prefer the slow start here, the basicness of what's going on in the beginning stages of the game. But I'm sure you've gotten quite a few varying opinions on that. Yeah.
Well, yeah. Mm-hmm. I mean, I have a secret fast forward key I use when I'm developing, because if not, I would be insane, and it would be 2 years still before the game's done.
Exactly.
But I have I went back and forth on it 1,000 times before I decided. You don't build holes in your station, you madman.
I'm trying not to.
Unacceptable behavior. I'm happy I can tell you to get your shit together.
Yeah. I'm glad you're here to walk me
Normally
through
when I watch people do Let's Plays, they do it wrong, and I can't do anything about it. Now I can. So anyway, yeah, fast forward. Like I've gone back and forth on having that at all. and I decided not to because it feels like the game is somehow like cheapened a little bit if I have it.
Sure.
So I decided to have it be slow. And I've also I've spent so much time making that pacing be just the way I want it. And a lot of people are sort of complaining that it ends after about 45 minutes because it gets too hard.
Yeah.
And that's also very deliberate. Like the game has like a crescendo at about 45 minutes when it gets hard.
Yeah.
And there's no discrete threshold at 45 minutes or anything. It just, that's where it tends to end. And that's on purpose.
It's actually one of the missions of the game, too, so I should mention that as well. When you begin this here, Seymour, I'm kind of addressing the question you had as well. Hopefully I can do it suitably, but you'll jump in, I'm sure, if I'm missing out on something here. The game is not randomly generated. This is actually I believe the exact same map. Maybe the material bases are spaced out differently. I may be wrong about that. I think they're the same.
Compared to, or for every game, it's the same.
Yeah, okay, so that's what I expected. So, yeah, the map that you see here is the same every time you play it. The draw to that, actually, is the fact that the game, like Martin was just saying, usually lasts about 45 minutes, and that's either the time that you've been able to complete all the missions, the objectives you have, which we can go show you guys. Actually, I should be able to pause and show you guys that right now. Yeah, so you can see that right now here. We have the missions still left to research all the monoliths, survive 28 waves, which is ridiculous, and then research all the monoliths in less than 45 minutes. So typically, what we've got in a standard game length is about 45 minutes to an hour, and that'll be about the time when either A, you've just died because the mission or the waves of enemies just become completely overwhelming, or B, you've been able to successfully navigate around the area here and research all the monoliths and get all your missions completed. Sound about right? Yep.
Yeah.
Cool. So at the moment, well, first of all, I'm an idiot and I should be moving my guys into defense because the wave is already here. But right now things are pretty basic. I hopefully am not going to die as okay. They were really close there, but we got it. Things are pretty basic as we have the early stages. The monoliths are probably something you guys are concerned about right now. What I'm immediately trying to do here is I've just finished up the quarters, and now we're trying to move food into the quarters in order to create more minions, which are these little rectangle guys here. I'm sure you guys have already pieced that together. Resources are looking okay right now. We've already got 2 extractors down. Probably going to work on a 3rd one over here on the left side pretty shortly. But we're looking to get more minions just so we can have a few other dudes to do new things. And I love the little sound that they make when they pop out. It's pretty adorable.
That's the one thing you sort of have to watch out for, by the way. It's the extractors, like those particle fields. They do run out, and if you don't spot that in time, you can get in a bad spot where you have to sell a bunch of stuff to be able to afford to build out to a new one.
Right.
The game does warn you, but nobody pays attention to that warning.
It's just so calm and subtle with the way it's like, oh, hey man, you should maybe consider the fact that you're about to lose everything you ever worked toward. Right,
yeah. It's funny because all of these things that are like I've obsessed so much over everything we've just talked about. Like everything has a very, like, I've thought about it a lot. And it's funny too because sometimes I get emails from people. It's like, hey, did you think about this and that? And like, yes, I did. I spent several days thinking about that.
Right. That was something I was going to ask you too, actually. Well, I, as you just said, I'm sure you've obsessed over just about everything. But as I was playing through it, I was looking at just for example, the resources required to build all the particular rooms, and I was certain of the fact that you had probably done extensive playtesting just to get to the point where you knew just exactly the balance you were looking for as far as how much it took to build a certain room or to get to a certain part of the game. And I mean, people can look at this and certainly think like, oh, this is pretty simple. You just got to get out to these certain points and make this stuff happen, and then you're on your merry way. But there's so much precise resource management on top of the fact that you can't actually control what your minions are doing. They just kind of have this set little priority task list in their head. Of course, if I have the situation that I have here where they only have 2 things to build and they're all in construction, then it makes a lot of sense that way. But well, what I really meant to throw to you as I'm just rambling here is the fact that I wanted you to kind of talk about like the playtesting process of like how exactly it is that you came to the decision of like, for example, a weapons building costs 2 of each resource or something like that.
That's one of the, like, deciding on stuff like that. That's one of the few, like, really sort of pure game designy things.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of it's just pulling numbers out of your ass. Like, I'm serious. Like,
yeah.
It's like you got to start somewhere, and that's your gut feelings. You just get pick a couple of numbers, see if it works, and then just play it over and over again and try. Like, it's more of an art than a science, I think.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like you basically you make your best guess you can, and then you go back on that and try to figure out like if it's working. The thing I tend to do is I tend to like make large adjustments. Like, so if something's too cheap, I make it twice as expensive, or like in this game 10 times wouldn't make much sense, but like you make big adjustments and you see like, okay, it's still too cheap. I can, and you do the big sort of movements to begin with, and then you can sort of slow it down and try to work it out.
Right.
In this, I had like the biggest issue is people doing what you did, like building the stuff in slightly wrong order in the early game.
Mm-hmm.
And the weapons are pretty expensive.
I appreciate how subtle you were about how much I just screwed everything up right here.
That's also like a funny thing about having people test your game.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone's very worried about doing it wrong, and the thing is, when people are testing a game, that's the whole point. I want them to be super stupid and make huge mistakes, because
mm-hmm.
that's, people in general are pretty stupid, me included.
Definitely
so
me.
I'm
on board with that description of myself for sure. I lost a couple of my units there. You guys can see that the layout of your space station becomes of critical importance here. I'm trying to build another weapon system over here by the monolith, because the monolith is pretty much our main objective. If we get over here, it makes our extractors more efficient, which may not be the best monolith to research first. You can actually click on them, and it'll show you exactly what kind of benefit you're going to be expecting if you get over here and research it fully. I'm trying to build another quarters here as well, so we can get more minions. I also got another extractor working over here, because I'm assuming that I'm going to be running out of the resources from this particular one in short order here. But yeah, I mean, I certainly had my share of complete confusion and idiocy, I suppose, as I was getting through the first waves of my 63-minute plus. I actually made it decently far. I'd have to brag
that's
about
a pretty
myself.
good run.
Yeah, I got to the third monolith, and I made a desperate attempt. It was actually, I kind of wish I had recorded it, because it was pretty fantastic. I had about 8 or 10 minions, and then I got over to this fourth monolith over here on the left side, and I think it was like wave 15 or something like that, and I just got completely obliterated. Just everybody died, and I had maybe like 2 minions left, and I was like maybe 66% of the way done with the monolith research over here. And so I just sent them over there, rushed the research. I was just hoping and praying that they could make it before the final wave came over to annihilate them, but I got maybe to like 95% before they just got killed. And it was
I love it when you get one lonely minion left, and there's like the next wave is like 8 enemies.
Exactly, and God, it was they fought their valiant little rectangle hearts out, but it was a wasted effort. And now we're getting into maybe another point of contention here that I'd like to discuss as well, and we've already touched on it a bit, just the fact that the minions, I hear that on the Android version they had kind of like a prioritized feature, and now that I'm clicking it and making it known to myself, is the fact that you can do that and tell them to prioritize, but other than that you have very little control over what the minions actually do. And I'm sure, of course, that was a hot button issue for your development process. Was there ever a point that you wanted to give the player like full control over the entirety of what was going on, or was it kind of just your mindset for the beginning, like, yeah, we're gonna make that a feature as opposed to a like a questionable matter?
Right. No, I was pretty aware. Like, I was making the game for the iPad, and I was making these decisions, and I knew I'm not going to be able to have.
Sorry, hold on. weird interference there. You turned into an alien for a moment. That was frightening.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, okay, I think we're better now. Go ahead. Sorry about that. I don't know what happened.
It's probably Skype being.
Yeah, I imagine.
Anyway, like I knew I was making the game for the iPad at the time, and I mean selecting units like classical type RTS thing on the iPad is impractical because you don't have clicking. Everything's dragging, so it's really like unclear whether you want to make a selection or you want to pan.
Right.
So I decided like maybe I can do this without having to deal with that at all, I mean, I looked at a few other games. Like I love Dungeon Keeper. I was playing Dungeon Keeper while I was watching you play the games earlier.
Oh, nice. That's awesome.
So I knew Dungeon Keeper could do it. So then maybe I could too. And I think it worked out pretty okay. That's another interesting thing with the minions. I mean, it sounds like a cop-out when I say it, but they are stupid on purpose.
Mm-hmm.
Because they are minions. If they had been super bright and super intelligent, there wouldn't be much left for you to do.
Right.
So they are not super bright on purpose. And some people complain about this. They're like, oh, the AI is terrible. And that's kind of sort of the point.
I do like that. Yeah, I mean, I don't want to like sound much like an apologist as we talk about all these possible issues of contention amongst people, but I'm pretty much on board with just about every direction the game is taking because I understand the deliberance of it. That's the word I just made up to describe something, but I I really like just the way that it all works out. I mean, like there's the balance to it just based on all these factors that we've been discussing. The fact that the minions don't do exactly what you want them to, they move slowly, which can be frustrating at times, but it's just again it's a deliberate thing just to make you aware at all times of what you're doing and just to make sure that you're trying to prioritize well enough to get the missions that you've undertaken completed in short order to get back and not die. And it works out for just about every purpose that it's trying to accomplish. And right now I'm also just kind of struggling to force myself to figure out what in the hell I'm going to be doing to even get far enough to make this a valiant effort, or at least barely considered one. But yeah,
you should get more weapons.
I should, yeah. And well, okay. So I'll run this strategy by you because you're probably the perfect person to ask for it. As I was getting through the later stages of my my first run, I started to pretty much just destroy everything that wasn't in the immediate vicinity of where I needed to go. So, like for example, I built out everything up to the point where I was getting to the monoliths with all my corridors, and I used to have buildings around all those areas too, but then I just started destroying everything, and I had like one garden, one kitchen, one extractor, one reactor, and then just like 3 weapons defense systems around what I expected to be like my final research monolith. And I'm sure that's aligned with what you think should happen. Yeah, I hope.
There's two sort of strategies to go for. It's that one. I don't have a name for them, but it's the one.
Let's call that the Baer strat. Can we call it the Baer strat?
Yeah, the Baer strat. The one I prefer is to build like a strong center, and then just branch out little arms out to the monoliths and not build anything out there, and just keep everything in the center.
Oh,
because
so
if you're going to last a lot of waves, you're going to need to. Because I mean, selling rooms is costing you money because you're getting less back than you spent building them.
Right.
So you want to keep stuff if you can, or at least if it's not completely unnecessary to keep it. That's my strategy, at least. I'm not entirely sure if it's the best one, but that's what I tuned the game for anyway.
I think we can maybe trust you on that. I don't know. I might be crazy, but. Yeah, guys, this is Rymdkapsel. We're joined by Martin, aka Grapefrukt, the developer. You can buy this on Steam right now. It's on sale for $8. You can also go directly to rymdkapsel.com and buy it for $8 through the Humble widget there. Awesome game, very relaxed. I mean, this is the kind of thing that you can probably, well, you're probably going to fail if you do it this way, but you can like play it while you write a book report or something. And I love it. I highly recommend it. It gets a lot more intense, believe it or not. I was talking about my first playthrough with it, but you get down to like wave 10, wave 12, things start getting crazy, and you really have to be very particular in your resource management. I've done a terrible job of exemplifying a ideal build here, but you kind of get the idea. Love the Tetromino's usage. It's awesome. Highly recommend it. Go check it out. This is Rymdkapsel. This has been Martin, and this has been the Indie Spotlight. Say goodbye if you want to. Any little final parting words? Tell the chat how beautiful they are, that kind of thing. They like it when you tell them how wonderful they are.
I mean, you're the chat. You're fantastic. I have never seen such tasteful use of smileys in my life. It's really quite remarkable.
Beautiful.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
For sure, yeah, thanks for coming on. This is extremely short notice, by the way. I want you guys to know I asked him if he wanted to be on the show 12 hours ago. So this is fantastic. I'm really glad that Martin could come hang out with us. Any questions that you guys have for him? I did mean to field some questions. Unfortunately, Twitch chat is still behaving poorly. But he is at Grapefrukt on Twitter, so you guys feel free to hit him up, anything you want. He's a super nice guy, as you can see, and this has been fun. This has been the Indie Spotlight. Thanks so much for joining me. Thank you, Martin, for coming on. And I'll see you guys in the next show.